RCHUB International Foundation for Research and Education, and ISO certified.
Shall we start the session, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so well and good. I hope I'm very much audible to everyone. Good evening. So today this is going to be completely holistic. This is what I'm going to talk right now, which is related to research title and objective formation, is not just academia, but also from experience point of view. So kindly pay a great amount of attention because this is what is going to be the preliminary work, what you do in research. So let's get started. Framing up a research title. Let me start with the research title first. So what is this research title is all about? It illustrates clearly to the reader, whoever is reading it, clearly illustrate what is the area of investigation, what is your study focus is all about. So this is what is a research title is meant for. The research title should clearly illustrate to any readers, whoever reading your research title should not have an ambiguity. They should have a clear idea of what your investigation was all about, what was your study focus. So that's how a research title has to be. While you frame a research title, you have to keep 4 things in mind. Remember, take this to your heart, not your brain, because these are the important things what you have to take into consideration while framing the research title. First is your research interest. Second is the time feasibility. Third is the financial feasibility. And finally is the existing reviews related to your study. All these things should be mandatory while you frame a title. I say why all these 4 things are very important. Let me repeat once again so that you can take it to your heart. First is your research interest. This is at most required. The second is the time feasibility. Every research has its own time frame. So you have to see to it, you have to make sure it is within the time frame of your PhD. For example, if your degree is between 3 to 5 years, it should be easily, you should be in a position to complete your research within the time frame, that is 3 years. Next is the financial feasibility and the existing reviews. I will illustrate one by one with an example. First is the research interest. I tell you why the research interest is at most important. The first, if you don't have an interest, if your guide have illustrated, you can conduct a research on so and so topic, on so and so title. Obviously, if you don't have an interest, you won't be in a situation to take your research further and find a good research gap for your study. Obviously, you will be conducting research without an interest, which means you won't be getting any insights on the research what you made. So the most important thing is that you should have an interest on the topic. Whatever research you make, you should have an interest over the topic. That will guide you to identify a good research gap that will guide you to get into more insight on the findings what you have done on your research. So the most important thing here first is the research interest. Always make sure that there are various subjects. Say for example, with respect to business, we have human resource, production, marketing, total quality management, so and so. You have your own subject of interest. Within the subject, you have your own topic of interest. So select such a kind of area or a domain in which you have a significant amount of interest so that you won't be feeling like you will be having an interest and attitude towards learning something new in the very same topic in which you are interested in. So research interest is at most important. The second thing is the time feasibility. Many individuals unknowingly select a topic or select a research title that doesn't limit to their study time, that doesn't limit to their time feasibility. For example, one of my friend, actually, the thing is that he wanted to make a comparison between the pre post pandemic export import with respect to agriculture sector for 5 years. So which means he have to study for another 5 years, which means after COVID, he could have completed his thesis if his study frame is limited to 2 or 3 years. But he had a scope that he will be considering the 5 years data, which means 2019 started and it ended during the 2019, and till now 2024 he's going to get it is now he have collected the entire data set. So which means almost the 5 years is gone just like that for collecting the data. But then compiling the thesis is once again you required 6 to 7 8 months, and once again for corrections to another 1 or 2 months, which is going to carry you nearly 6 to 7 years of your lifespan for the PhD. But the thing is that it is more than enough. I mean, you may able to complete within 3 years, but the thing is that because of the scope and because of the objectives and because of the research title, which is wrongly framed, he was supposed to conduct his research for next 5 years after the COVID pandemic. So this is very important. While framing the title, make sure that you may able to complete your research within the given time frame. For example, and don't make sure that don't always have a time feasibility of 2.5 years or 2 years. Don't push to the limit that if, for example, 3 years is a span of PhD. And for conducting a research, you have to make sure that you complete your entire work within the 2.5 years. The 6 months is a buffer time you to scrutinize your research. So always have a time frame of 2.5 years. That will always do good. The 6 months is a buffer time to scrutinize your thesis in such a way to look so more good and to have more insights and beautiful findings. So the second most important thing is the time feasibility. So when you have a research interest, you have an attitude of learning the particular topic or the subject with more interest. And the most important thing is that it should limit to the time feasibility. So this is the second most important thing what you have to take into consideration. Then is the financial feasibility. I say financial feasibility because every research has its own financial burden. You believe me or what, for data collection, for some, you have to go to a customer. For some, you have to go to the employer. For some, you need to go to the direct owner of the organization. For some, you have to collect in a different method. Yet, the data collection involves money, and you have to make sure you know your financial strength, and you have to make sure that the research title what you frame is having a financial feasibility based on your financial strength. So that is very important. So for example, I tell you what, with the same one of my friend who have collected this data. Actually, he have collected a data regarding the challenges faced by the agriculture processed food product exporter. So the problem is that he have to collect the data from the owner of the organization. So with respect to Tamil Nadu or whatever the area he's going to study. So the thing is that he went to the employer, the owner of the organization, the exporter, and then he then asked he then collected the questionnaire. For going to the each and every owner or the employer of the organization, he faced many problems. Excuse me. So he faced many problems. Like, for example, actually, this is what is one of the example what he illustrated to me. The first is that he went to an went to the owner of the owner who is exporting agricultural product. The problem was that he wasn't busy in scheduling a strategic plan for his organization. So the day when he went, he was completely busy and preoccupied with the work. So he could not give his time for filling the questionnaire. So what happened was he was imposed to stay there in the particular place, paying the room rent, paying, and once again coming back the next day to collect the data. So it has its own expenses. Every research has its own financial burden. You have to know your financial burden, and you have to make sure that the financial burden what the research has is feasible by you. So the third important thing what you have to take into consideration is the financial feasibility. And then is the existing reviews. So don't get into a very, very unique topic. That is my suggestion. The thing is that the actual research, as a researcher, the actual research happens after you complete your PhD. At that point of time, you can completely get into a topic which is completely what do I say, unforeseen, or is not done by anyone. At that point of time, it's okay. But the thing is that as a starter, as a beginner of a researcher, you have to make sure that you have many existing reviews related to your research, because through that you may able to identify the research gap, the research design, the sampling technique, what to be employed, the sample size, the minimum sample size, what is required for your study, what justification for using the study area. So all these things, and the data collection instrument, what can be used, and the questionnaire, even the questionnaire or the factors and the variables, everything can be obtained through the existing reviews. If your topic, if your research title is completely new, obviously you will be you'll be having a very hard time um, writing the review of literature, identifying the factors, identifying the variables, and framing the suitable questions for your study. And without any base, if you're going to frame your questionnaire, obviously it won't be reliable statistically. If you do testing via factor or chemo test or by Cronbach alpha test. So you always have to make sure that there are significant amount of existing review of literature pertaining to the study. If you keep all these in mind, while framing the title, you may able to complete your research within the given time bound with the less financial burden, at the same time without a very great or significant amount of effort. So this is what you have to keep in mind to while you frame the research title. So all these things, all the four important things, what I stated is from an experience point of view. So take it to a heart. So first is a research interest. Always make sure that whatever topic or whatever title you choose that is completely relevant to your interest. Say for example, any subjects what you take, you may have two or three subjects of interest. Don't limit your while framing the research title, don't limit to one title. Have 5 or 6 research titles, so that you may, because you may have an interest over 6 or 7 subjects and topics within it. So make sure that these among these 6 or 7 topics what you have considered, which has a very good time feasibility for your study, which could be completed within 2.5 or 3 years span of time. And then think about the financial feasibility or the financial viability of that research what you're going to conduct. Is it coming under your financial is it financially viable by your side? And then finally the existing reviews. So all these has to be taken into consideration while framing the title. So these are the important things what you have to take into consideration. So we have discussed about the things to keep in mind while framing the title. So now I tell you what are the steps to frame an effective research title, and I also suggest you, and I will also give you a simple technique to frame a effective research title. So first, the first step is that identify the key elements. Say, for example, you are interested in HR. Among the HR, you are interested in recruitment and selection strategy. So here your key element is recruitment and selection strategy, and you always after identifying the element, the most important thing is that you have to incorporate some key words. Say, for example, mostly organization doesn't look for the recruitment selection. It's all about recruitment selection strategies. That is a long-term plan. Then also you need to make sure that when you frame a research title, it is a descriptive language. I told you, right? So research title is all about, it's very much clear to the reader. It should clearly illustrate what your area of study, what your investigation is all about. So don't use any technical terminologies, use a descriptive language so that anyone who reads your title may able to understand clearly what your research is all about. And then is the length. Length is very important. Don't make it as a sentence. A title has to be a title. It should be within a single line. Or then
battery has become very weak.
so then you have to consider the length. Then avoid ambiguity. Avoid ambiguity in the sense, actually, the thing is that when you use technical term, obviously it creates a confusion among the experts. So for example, there's the very same study what my friend have undertaken. The thing is that he have clearly written agriculture processed food product. It's a technical term. It's there is a separate commodity board with respect to agriculture processed food product export. So instead of agriculture processed food product, if he have written agriculture product, it may create confusions among the experts, not among the readers, but among the experts. So always make sure that you are not creating any ambiguity, and then it should clearly reflect your research type. So all these has to be taken into consideration while framing the research title. Now, so the steps to frame the research title is that always use a key element, use a descriptive language, and always incorporate the key words or the factors that you are considering for the study, and always make sure it is not of a sentence, but it has a significant it is not lengthy. It should not be more than a line, and then one or one and a half line, and then avoid ambiguity, and it should reflect a research type. Now I tell you a technique. Now let me illustrate a technique to frame a research title. So how to do that? Many have a confusion how to frame a research title. Research title can be just framed with I'm talking about the business research title, the management discipline, the commerce discipline. I'm not talking about any other discipline. I'm talking about this business management commerce discipline. So to frame a research title, you have to take three things into consideration. Now, for example, my subject of interest is HR, human resource management, and my topic of interest is recruitment and selection. And what industry? That's what is important. When it comes to business research, you always conduct a study with confined to a specific industry. So, for example, I wanted to know the recruitment selection strategy with respect to an IT industry. So, with respect to an IT industry, and I wanted to I wanted to study this within the Chennai district, because most of the IT industries are concentrated in Chennai districts rather than any other districts in Tamil Nadu. So now let me frame the title. So first is your subject. So recruitment and selection strategies. So what is the industry? Recruitment selection strategies adopted by the IT industry in Chennai district. So you see, the complete resource title without any ambiguity is been framed. You can take anything into consideration. So, say for example, some other titles. Say for example, um, consumer behavior, and let us take the industry of garment in, let us apparel industry. Study area is once again a Chennai district. So now let us frame the title. A study on consumer behavior towards towards
బెడ్ పెన్నే ఉడుస్తుంటారు నీక నువ్వు జాగోడి చెప్పినా నేను చెప్పి పడుతుంది.
Everyone try to mute yourself, ma. Okay, so the thing is that so consumer behavior, a study on consumer behavior among the apparel industries in Chennai districts. So this is how a research title has to be framed. It should be clear, concise, and crystal. So to frame a research title, you always have to make sure that you select the subject of your interest. After selecting the subject, it has its own subtopics. Say, for example, for human resource, it has its own subtopics like recruitment, selections, maintenance, talent acquisition. So many topics are there. So once you have selected the topic, combine that with the industry. The industry should clearly illustrate who is your sample respondent. Say, for example, recruitment selection strategies adopted by the IT industry. So who is my sample respondents? Here, the HR. The HR is a sample respondent. From the study title itself, I am able to understand who is my sample respondent. And what is my study area? The Chennai districts, in Chennai districts, or with reference to Chennai district. So a recruitment selection strategy is adopted by the IT industry in Chennai district or with reference to Chennai districts. So this is how a research title has to be framed. So while framing the research title, always keep your topic or a factor first, followed by the industry, completely illustrating who is your sample respondent, and then is your study area. When you club all these things together, your title is ready. So this is how your research title has to be framed. This is not just limited to the example what I give. You consider anything. You consider your own research. The research title, if you wanted to scrutinize, some might have framed a title that is completely what do I say? It may create some ambiguous terminologies in the reader's mind. So if you consider these facts, that is selecting the topic, selecting the industry, and selecting the study area, clubbing all together with some annotations, it will create a clear research title for your study that doesn't have any ambiguity. So this is a shortcut to frame a research title. So then, coming to the importance of research title, I tell you what, this has a very, very significant importance. Actually, research title is the first impression of the researcher. Actually, it is going to create the research title, what you have framed, clearly illustrate what you are as a researcher. So always make sure that it is clear, and it has a good continuity, and it is concise. That is, it has a clarity and precision, and it should completely reflect your research scope, because many researchers have faced these kind of struggles. The thing is that his own guide, or during the Viva voice, or during some other time, they could have asked you, why haven't you considered this factor? Why haven't you considered that factor for the studies? That is also important, right? I tell you what, when these kind of questions being imposed, you should be in a position to defend that is not your scope of the study. When you frame a research title, your scope is being limited. And you have to make sure that you fulfill the research scope, not the entire thing. Say, for example, the challenges faced by the agricultural product exporter is you're focusing on only the challenges, not the opportunities, not the other things. So you can clearly illustrate the viewers or the questioners, stating that is not my scope of study. So your research title should clearly illustrate your research scope. That is, the challenging faced by the exporter is only my scope, not the opportunities. So always make sure a research title has a very great significant importance for as the viewer and as the researcher. So it creates an impression on the researcher, and the more clarity and more precision clearly illustrates that you have done your research in a very systematic way, and the research scope is also should be reflected in the research title so that you don't be getting any tiresome questions. So these are the important things you should take into consideration. So as of research title framing, these are the things what you have to keep in mind. So let me summarize everything. So research title is all about your study focus. It illustrates the reader, whoever viewing that research title, it clearly illustrates what is your area of investigation. And while you frame a research title, you have to make sure that the following four things is fulfilled. That is, your research title should be you should be having research interest towards your research title, and it should be timely feasible. If your PhD duration is 3 years, it should be you should be in a position to complete your research within the 2.5 years. The 6 months is a buffer time. So every research has its own time feasibility, time viability, and you have to make sure that the research interest, it has a significant time viability, that is you may able to complete within 2.5 years or 3 years, not more than that. And financial feasibility. Every research with respect to business or management or commerce has its own financial burden, and you should know your financial viability, and choose a research topic that is in which you have your own interest, and you also need to make sure that it is financially feasible by your end and existing reviews. I tell you what, your real research happens only after you complete the PhD. This is a base to understand what this research is all about, how to systematically conduct a research. So in order to know what kind of research, so it is always advisable as a beginner to have existing reviews for your research, so that you may able to exactly identify what kind of research methodology need to be adopted, that is what kind of research design need to be adopted for your study, what kind of sampling technique can be adopted, what kind of sample size has to be used, justification for your study area, what kind of data collection instrument, the factors, the variables, everything can be collected via existing reviews. So these are the four important things what you have to keep in mind while framing the title. And then once you have identified some titles, you have to make sure to frame a research title. So in order to frame a research title, the shortcut is subject, topic, industry, sample respondent, and study area. When you club all these three things together, you will get a clarified research title. That is, say for example, uh, with respect to, say for example, my subject of interest is social media. So and industry is, let us consider let us consider uh, let us consider retail industry, the retail industries, and study areas, Chennai district. So now what I have to, the impact of social media marketing, the impact of social media marketing on consumer behavior in retail industry at Chennai district. So if you frame all these things together, you will get the research title. So this is how yes, research title has to be framed. While framing the research title, you have to make sure that the topic, the subject and the topic is clearly illustrated, the industry is clearly illustrated, and the area of the study is clearly illustrated. If these are combined, you will get a clear research title. So this is a shortcut for framing the research title. And the importance of research title, as I stated, it is the impression of yourself. It creates the impression how far as a researcher you are. So the clarity and precision is must, and the most important thing is that it should illustrate your research scope. So coming to the next important division, that is framing the objectives of the study. Uh, 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 Everyone try to mute yourself, ma. I'm getting some disturbance, so please don't mistake me. Everyone try to mute yourself. Okay. Okay. So framing the objective. So what this objective is all about? I tell you, when it comes to objective, it clearly illustrates your specific goal for that particular research. So that is what this research objective is meant for. So the most important thing here, what you need to take into consideration here is that your objective should be SMART. So what is SMART? It is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound for the study what you're going to conduct. So the most important thing what you have to take into consideration here is that the research objective is all about it illustrates or it outlines what is your specific goal as a researcher. And the most important thing is that whatever objective you are framing, you need to make sure that it is SMART. That is, it is achievable. That is, it's specific, it is achievable, so it is measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So you may have a doubt. So how to frame a good, excuse me. So how to frame a good research title? Excuse me. Is my voice audible?
Yes, so your voice is audible, sir.
Okay, so because it seems to be completely monotonous, I was speaking, so I just wanted to make sure everything is clear. Okay, okay. So, excuse me. Yeah. So how a flow of objectives has to be? I tell you what, when it comes to flow of objectives, it should start with a very broad explanation. Start with like a study or study to understand the concept or something context like that. And then narrow down into specific factors like uh, so the first is all about you giving an exploration. You are just exploring the topic. And the second should be narrowing down to the factors what you're going to consider for the study. Then is the conducting an in-depth analysis and then trying to forecast the future trends, either by even for social studies, you can do the forecasting of the future using regression and other tools. And then finally giving the recommendation and suggestion. So this is how the flow of objective has to be. And the most important thing is that if you are going to leave any one of this part, your objective will not be clear and concise. Take it to your heart. This is out of my experience. If you're going to leave any one of these things, your objective flow will not have a good continuity. Say, for example, generally, this is how I generally, as far as my experience is concerned, I create the objective flow. First is to study and understand, and then to identify the factors and variables, and to analyze, to estimate. And the fourth objective will be related to my research gap, and finally to provide suggestion. If this is your objective flow, I tell you what, 100% your objective will have a great clarity and continuity. I tell you why. Let us consider an example itself. Say, for example, I wanted to, okay, say the very same example. I wanted to conduct a study on recruitment and selection strategy with respect to IT industry. So in Chennai district. So if this is my study. So my first objective will be like to study and understand the concept. You see, to study and understand the concept of recruitment and selection strategies adopted by IT industry in context to Chennai district. So first is to study. I'm going to study. So what is my second objective will be to identify the various factors and variables. So how I will be framing my second objective? To identify the various factors associated with recruitment and selection strategies adopted by the IT industry in Chennai district. So this will be my second objective. So what will be my third objective? To analyze the recruitment strategies, or the to analyze, let me consider just one thing, to analyze the recruitment strategies adopted by the IT industries in Chennai district. Then, third, to estimate the impact of recruitment strategies on selection process adopted by the IT industry in Chennai district. And through the review of literature, you must have identified some research gap or what. And that has to be your next objective. And then finally, to provide suggestion for the IT industries to provide valuable suggestions to IT industries regarding the recruitment selection strategies. So this is how, if this is the flow of your objective, I tell you what, 100% every reader may able to understand clearly what your objective is all about, and they may able to correlate and they may able to identify a good continuity in your objective. So this is also another shortcut. This is another shortcut to frame a research objectives. So your research objectives has to have this kind of flow. That is, first is to study. Next is to identify the factors or factors and variables, and to analyze, to estimate, and the research gap oriented objective. And finally is to provide suggestions and the conclusions. So, I tell you what, if I already told you that if any one of the objective is being removed, it wouldn't be having a good flow, right? So let me also give the same, let me give an example for the same itself. For example, first is to study, okay. And next is to identify the variable. But in case, if I'm not going to use the third objective, the recruitment strategies adopted by the IT industry in Chennai district, instead I'm directly going to estimate the impact of recruitment strategies on selection process. The thing is that it won't be having a good continuity. If you take a close look, it will be like just like that you're going into going in depth into an analysis. So you need to go step by step. That is how the objective has to frame. And I tell you what, for each and every objectives, you can frame the hypothesis, and not to the first two or the last one. Framing the hypothesis for this is completely doesn't have any common sense. Many people think that if you have 5 objectives, we need to frame a 5 hypothesis. If you have 6 objectives, 6 hypotheses. No, it's not like that. Your hypothesis purely relies on the questionnaire, the factors and its associated variables what you are considering for the study. And you need to make sure that all the factors and its associated variables are combinedly tested via hypothesis, not based on the objectives. Many researchers or misleaded that the objectives and hypotheses are completely interlinked, but it is not like the number of objectives and the number of hypotheses has to be same. So you should be in a position to know how to frame a hypothesis, which will be illustrated in the next session. So today, as of now, we have discussed the research title and how to frame an objective. So let me try to summarize everything with respect to objectives of the study. So I stated that objective is nothing but a research outline that clearly illustrate what you are intended to achieve, or what is a specific goal with respect to your research. And I also suggested you that the research objective should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That is, it should be SMART. And when it comes to objective flow, you should start with a broad explanation and then narrow down into a specific factor, try to perform some in-depth analysis on it, and try to give a forecast. forecast of future trends, and then finally give the conclusion. You may have a question, what is forecast? I tell you what, even here to estimate is nothing but the forecast here, what we are going to do. Say, for example, here I have stated that impact of recruitment strategies on the selection process, right? So when it comes to impact is nothing but impact or influence is nothing but a regression analysis. Regression analysis is generally carried out to find or forecast the future. It gives generally the regression equation gives the forecasting accuracy as well as the forecast how far the recruitment strategies influence or impact the um, impact the selection process. So this is what. So if this is the flow you have to think as an objective, and this is how you have to write an objective. So if you take all these things, all these suggestions, what I have given just right now, you may clearly able to frame a research objectives, and and you may able to clearly write a research title. So let me summarize everything what I have stated. So while framing the research title, always have these 4 things in your mind: research interest, time feasibility, financial feasibility, existing review. To frame a proper research title, you need to make sure that it has the topic, the sample industry, and that illustrate who is your sample respondent and study area. If you're going to club all these together, you will be getting a beautiful research title that is clear enough to all the viewers. So the topic, the industry, and study area, all 3 things has to be clubbed together. And then objectives. The objectives should start with to study, to identify the factor, to analyze the particular factor or a variable, to estimate the factors considered for the study, and then your next objective should be related to your research gap, and finally is to provide suggestions and conclusions. So is everything clear? Is everything clear, ma?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So do anyone have any doubts? Actually, what I have taught you today is from entirely using the experience point of view. So this or the shortcuts, what after conducting nearly 20 researchers, I have gained this experience. So this is what I really want to tell you, because I want you to start with a significant without much wrong, because the thing is that the more wrong you make, the more time you consume, and the less wrong you make, obviously the more time you take to learn. So that is what is my ideology is all about. Okay, so just hold on a minute. Yeah. So in today's session, do anyone have any doubts, or would you like to make a discussion on any other thing what you'd like to ask?
So,
Yeah.
sir, I want to ask about the SPS's statistical analysis on dimension reduction for survey questionnaires, for my survey questionnaires.
Okay, ma'am.
Actually, my survey type is 5-point Likert scale in nature. It have 3 parts: awareness, application, and future outlook. 3 parts. Among these 3 parts, each parts have nearly 15 to 16 questions within them. I want to know how to do dimension reduction, reliability, chi-square, and regression analysis.
That's very, very simple, ma. I will teach you during the third day of the workshop. I tell you what, you should not segregate the factor. When it comes to dimension reduction, say for example, it's literally a factor analysis. So you and Cronbach alpha, once again, you have considered 3 factors, right? For 3 factors, you have considered so many questions, so many variables within it. So which means you have to consider all those variables as a single factor. You need need to perform a Cron-Batch alpha test, reliability, which is nothing but a reliability statistics. Chi-square, I tell you what, chi-square statistics doesn't, I think it won't be applicable to you because you have used a Likert scale. A Likert scale is nothing but a metric scale statistically. If both the data are categorical in nature, then we can perform chi-square analysis. That is the chi-square analysis or the correspondence analysis, which is performed to identify the significant association between two variables or what, the two factors or what. But since you have used a metric scale, a 5-point Likert scale, we cannot use chi-square test for your analysis. For the third day, we can see that, ma. The third day of the workshop, you illustrate your questionnaire. I will suggest you how, at that point of time itself, I will suggest you how to identify what kind of analysis has to be performed for your specific questionnaire. So don't worry, during the third day, I will be illustrating you. And regarding the Cron-Batch alpha test and regarding the dimension reduction, I tell you what, dimension reduction is nothing but, we can simply call it as a factor analysis, ma'am. A factor analysis is generally done to identify the sub-factors within the factor. For example, there are many challenges with respect to export and import. So what you don't know exactly under what factor it comes in, what factors it suits in. So what you do is that you might have asked nearly 20 to 25 questions, but it may come under 2 or 3 factors. To know that unknown sub-factors, you will go for dimension reduction, that is the factor analysis. In the factor analysis, you need to consider 4 important parts. That once again I will teach you the 4. Let me tell you what those 4 parts are all about. First is a K1 ballot test, and next is the commonalities and the total variance explained, and then is the pattern matrix. So these are the things what you have to consider for the dimension reduction. That you can easily do for your analysis. That is, since it is in Likert scale, because for dimension reduction it should be in Likert scale, 5-point or 7-point Likert scale. Okay, so that I will teach you, ma. That I will teach you during the third day of the workshop. So don't worry. So anyone, any other questions? Is today's session, is everything clear? Or would you like
Sir,
to
I have
discuss?
a small doubt, sir. I have a small doubt. Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, actually, whenever we put hypothesis, then objective, everything. So, whenever we submit synopsis, it is mandatory to find out the research gap, or after the results, we have to find out and correlate it before doing any suggestions.
Yeah. While you frame the synopsis, the first, I mean, the synopsis in the sense as an initial part of the synopsis. I tell you what, there are 2 types of synopsis, ma. One synopsis you will submit at the end. One synopsis is just a proposal of your study. I think you are talking about the proposal of the study, the initial
Yes,
part.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I
Proposal.
tell you, ma, initial part, you cannot exactly identify the research gap. Identifying the research gap requires a systematic review of literature. I tell you what this systematic review of literature is all about. The systematic review of literature is all about collecting more than 100 or between 100 to 150 review of literature exactly relevant to your study, and identifying the research methodology. What is the research design adopted in all the 150 and research, I mean, the sampling technique, the sample size, the analysis they performed, what was their findings, what was their suggestions, what was the factors they considered, what was the variables they considered within the limited time bound, within the limited time bound. I tell you what, well, if you're going to submit a proposal, you cannot identify the research gap all at once. It requires 6 to 8 months. At that point of time, you will be just illustrating based on 10 or 20 review of literature. This is the research gap that I identified, but that may not be the specific research gap for your study. After you going through 75 to 80, I tell you what, this is the fact. If you read 30 to 40 review of articles, if you go through 30 to 40 review of articles, you may easily able to identify the variables and the factors, because after 30 or 40 articles, you see to it the same variables get repeated again and again. The question may be vary, but the variables within the question will be same. So if you go through 70 or 80 article, you may clearly able to understand these are the variables here considered, these are the factors they identified, and this is their exact research gap that they have left out all these times. So the research gap cannot, you require nearly 6 to 8 months to exactly identify what is your research gap. At the time of proposal, you may just go through 10 or 20 research articles and you can give, this is what is my tentative research gap is all about, but that will not be your exact research gap. You got me, Mia? It requires systematic review of literature. You got me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That I have a small doubt, sir. Actually, I have an initial position to do my PhD thesis. So this is my first year, so I have a small doubt, sir.
But the thing
Thank
is
you so
that you should have you should have a real commitment towards review of literature, ma. If you go through this review of literature systematically for nearly 2 to 3 months, you may clearly able to identify everything. So that's okay. So I hope I have answered your question. So is there anyone any questions, any discussions in today's session?
Sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Sir, how many months will be the required months to take to complete the proposal, sir? To understand the good proposal, how many years, how many months would be the time gap?
Okay, so in order to create a proposal, research proposal, how much time it takes? That's
Yeah.
what your question. Am I right, ma?
Yeah, sir.
The thing is that 1 to 1.5 months is more than enough. I tell you
Yeah.
how. I tell you how, ma. Let me give some illustration. So when you're going to create a research proposal, you have to take following things into consideration. Just you have to write an introduction that you can do it just in a half a day or 1 day. Introduction doesn't matter. The second important thing is this statement of problem. The next is the objective of the study, the hypothesis of the study, the scope of the study, the significance of the study, and finally your chapterization. All these things, that is a statement of problem, the objectives, the hypothesis, the significance, the scope requires a complete study, which means a study of nearly 10 to 20 articles in your domain. You may able to, if you systematically review, I think based on anyone's potential, they may able to collect more than 25 articles within just a week. Within just a week, yeah, I'm talking about a very good articles, not just small articles. A very good articles that is completely relevant to your study. You may able to you can take 20 to 25 articles in a span of a week. So which means through the review of literature, you may able to identify the statement of problem. So in order to write the statement of if you identify the statement of problem, using the statement of problem, you may able to write the objectives. Once the objectives is written, based on the objectives, you may able to write the hypothesis, and based on the objectives, you may also able to write the significance and the scope of the study, for which will take more than which will take just 1 or 2 days time. And finally is your the chapterization, which is going to take you just 1 or 2 hours. That's more than enough. So if you wanted to create a good proposal, you need to go through at least 25 to 30 articles pertaining to your study. That is exactly pertaining to your study. So it is for that 1.5 to 2 weeks is required. And for documentation, you require nearly 2 to 3 weeks, because we need to make sure that every content what you give sounds good. So it has content, it has clarity, and it has continuity. So you should spend 1 week time to scrutinize your proposal, and 2 weeks for your literature, 1 week for completely writing your research proposal. And if you take all these things into consideration, 1 month, that is 5 weeks, is more than enough to write a good research proposal. The thing is that you should be committed. Every day you have to spend time for your research proposal. Just working on 1 or 2 hours doesn't work out. If you're going to write a proposal, 1 month is needed, and you should be dedicated consistently. Okay, got it, ma?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Anyone, anything else? So what about the session? Have I taught you everything clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Everything is clear, sir.
Okay. So, okay. I hope no doubts. In case, if at all, if anyone had any doubts, feel free to ask me feel free to ask me during the next live session, ma. Okay, so next live session will be once again happening sharp by 7 as it happened today, and ending sharp by 8 as it is going to happen right now. So I hope everything what I thought was clear, and take everything what I said was take into your heart. Well, that is what I could say, because everything I'm not speaking from the academic perspective, I'm speaking from the experience perspective, and lot more things should be explained. But the thing is that I want questions from your end, because uh, these are the things what I personally believe is mandatory to create a research title or a frame objective or a things. But you may encounter a different set of problem. Until unless you openly ask questions, I may not be in a position to answer that specifically. So feel free to ask questions, ma. Okay. So I hope in today's session everything is been clear. So I think we can wind up the session. Um, so thank you all. Thank you, God. We see. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Contact RCHUB International Foundation for Research and Education. WhatsApp 9888 231 231.